Again, this is about self-edification and self-improving our culture and understanding why some people might look at us in a hostile manner. We might be abrasive towards other people, and we need to understand why. Sometimes we are too arrogant, very ignorant, and we seem to have a chip on our shoulder and believe that we are, the best of black people. So, in no particular order, reason number one, arrogance. Nigerians believe for some reason that we are the best, right? We somehow are, because of our population, our economic success, and when we export Nigerians, they seem to be doing all right outside, quite intelligent. But if there is success like that, these are a select few. These are not everyone, okay? And if Nigeria is an economic powerhouse, it isn't because native Nigerians made it that way. It was because the British created Nigeria and forced various people into one economy. So it wasn't like something that we were the architects of such success. It was forced upon us. In reality, in Nigeria, there are various nations in one country. That's why it is so big. That's why there are so many people, and that's why it seems like we are successful. But this arrogance is why, shout out Tariq Nasheed, I support his stance with so-called tethers, because it's not uncommon to find Nigerians who emigrate to a country, they choose to go and live in another country, but then they live in the country and they look down upon the people in the country, or they look down upon other people, especially other black people, down upon the Caribbeans, look down upon the black American. This is arrogance. You've chosen to live amongst people, but you then side-eye them as if you're any better than them. Like, this is not a trait of good people, good manners. Number two, hyper-materialism. I think with Nigerians, we have a big man complex. Originally, we lived and embraced under chieftains or big kings, and these kings held supreme power. So I think in our psyche, we like to see the big man with everything. But things have changed. Our culture has been affected by European culture. Now everyone individually wants to be this big man or big woman. So everyone is trying to outdo the next person. Everyone is looking for the better fashion accessory, jewelry, the best, biggest car to stand out. Like, I've got family members who put so much into achieving or gaining a Range Rover, a car, a material. And it's not as if they bought the car, they leased the car, but for some reason, this expense, which is not needed in a city such as London, fills them with some sort of joy and happiness, contentment, like they've arrived. And these are grown up. These are not young people in their 20s, 30s, these are grown ups well in their 40s, and typically for a sane person, as you get older, you relinquish the chains that materials have on you. It's not that important anymore, right? When Christmas comes, for example, you're not so hot on, I want this, I want that, like a child. But many of us are like children when it comes to materials. Loads of trainers, loads of shoes, loads of accessories, loads of beauty products. And ultimately, materialism just breeds a person who is vain, selfish, and self-serving. All their money goes to them. They don't think of a community. They don't think of others. They don't think of bringing up others. They want to be supreme amongst others. So it's always a competition in their mind. This is why I've always frowned upon materialism, because it stains the mind. It breeds a bad mind individual, a hater, someone who, when they see other people shine, they have a evil eye for that person. And I see that so much in the Nigerian culture. So many women, even older women, grandma level women, have this. They go to parties in their sparkly dresses, in their gele, and they still have this competitive kind of thing. It's not like some sort of, let's bring each other up. It's still competition. Arguments, petty fights over trivial things. And of course, just like in the I Show Speed video that we saw, it breeds the beggar mentality. Begging for stuff. Money, give me money. You got older men and women, money, give me money. That's all they care about, material. And again, this taints the personality, especially when these people claim to be religious. How can you claim religious when your God is money? You don't ask for blessings, you ask for money. Or even if you ask for blessings, in that prayer, you're asking for money. You're asking for riches. You know, we don't learn from the biblical prophecies. Instead of asking for riches, why not ask for wisdom? But no, many of us want money. Number 3, zero empathy. Many Nigerians will report, if they're honest to you, that they grew up in an abusive household. Many of our parents showed no mercy when they were beating us, you know, and I think ultimately when someone is raised in that environment, that negative energy manifests in them as well. So they grow up with zero empathy. They grow up heartless. They grow up not caring about their neighbor. They grow up with the ability to unalive someone. Many of these gangs in the UK are Nigerians are in them. Cold and heartless, ruthless. And then you come to Europe or America and you're in a lower economical situation. You can't afford things. You have to work super hard in bad, menial jobs. You're depressed. Yeah, that can all add to it. But I mean, as a parent myself, there is a level of empathy that I have for my child and for children in general, because I understand that children are molded by the effects of adults. I love my child, so I show empathy. Even when I want to discipline him, I show empathy. You know, he's full of energy, he wants to do this, wants to do that. Okay, cool, but discipline, come back, sit down, I show empathy. It's not a case of beating kids, especially young kids, with weapons. Young kids with the soft skin, you're beating kids with belts. Like, that's not discipline, that's just straight up abuse. You know, and we really need to study why this is, because this is serious. It affects the mind in a negative way. It breeds contempt for people and life when these kids grow up. Number 4, elders have zero respect for the youth. And for me, this is probably one of the biggest ones, because in life, there are different stages of life, and there is a time when the parent hands down responsibilities to the next generation. It's important in that cycle of life, right? In development. But in the case of Nigeria, we have to revere the elders, and not even elders, people who are just older than us by a few years. We have to revere them in a way where we retain elements of being a child. And in return, these older people have very minimal respect for the youngers. And we can see this when it comes to certain presidents that want to hold on to power when they're getting senile, their eyes are getting cloudy, but they don't trust the youth, they don't respect the youth to transition. And so you will have a 30-year-old Nigerian man who is mentally a child because their 70, 80-year-old parents are treating them like children still. And that 30-year-old man doesn't have it in his mind. He thinks, oh, this is respect and this is culture. He doesn't have it in his mind to combat them and to tell them, wait a second, I'm a grown man. It's my time to shine. You are the elders. You are old. You are getting senile. You need to sit down and let me take the lead. This is, again, a form of cultural corruption. And so we see a lot of Nigerians, they can't really compete in this world, especially in the Western world. In the Western world, I've been around a lot of Western families, and the upbringing is very different. They embrace their kids. They entrain their kids. It's like an apprenticeship. But we don't seem to have that system. It's like, again, that big man complex. These people, the elders, revere the so-called ancestors. This is why I make the video called F the Ancestors. F the ancestors. This is not how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be looking forward, and this comes to things like stuff like inheritance. A lot of our parents don't have inheritance for us. A lot of our parents are still spending money on themselves. They haven't saved anything for their kids. No investment, no LISA, no thinking about that, no, nothing. Even when they die, we are expected to pay for the funerals. They haven't planned this stuff. So they live life spending their money on themselves, going to parties, going to church, elaborate stuff, travel, but they're not thinking about their future, the next generation. You know, you can't complain, or you can understand when we tend to be chronically in a lower economical situation because our predecessors didn't help us. Our predecessors didn't store something away for us. They just spent on themselves in most cases. Corruption as well. Like a lot of, in many situations, Nigerians, the elders get sort of priority when it comes to some sort of money distribution. So, these Nigerians might have big families and the younger kids might not get anything. Again, that's cultural corruption. That's not fair. And that breeds contempt between siblings, sibling rivalry. Number 5, tribal. There is obviously a lot of tribes in Nigeria. And the reality is Nigerians have not got experience in operating a nation state. Again, Nigeria was created by Britain. Nigerians often lived in city-states. Even amongst the same ethnic group who spoke the same language, had the same cultural practices, they still identified only with their little city-state, right? There was a king for these city-states, right? So I think this ingrained a sort of territorial mentality where we're not really good at cooperation. And again, with the British, they forced us to cooperate. And this is why we see a lot of inter-ethnic violence in Nigeria. This is why Nigeria is so divided. And this is why elements such as pro-black, pan-African movements ultimately will fail, because many Africans are this way. Many Africans are tribal. And for a pan-African movement to work, we really need to revolutionize the way we think. But for a revolution, we need a centralized figure that understands the history. But really, the most Pan-Africanists come from the diaspora. Many Africans are very ignorant towards ideas of Pan-Africanism. So it's crazy that the people who should be the kings and the leaders of Pan-Africanism don't really understand it, and they don't really get along with other Africans in Africa, but it's the people outside of Africa that is trying to join up and form Voltron amongst all black people. You see how it's not going to work? There are many Africans that don't even know their own history. They don't even know the history of their own royal families. So I query what is being taught in their schools. Many Africans don't even know the history of the slave trade. And that should be offensive to some of you people. Hello? That's fine. Could you get 2 if you can, please? DVD size, like the standard. Okay, thanks. Okay, bye. So this is why pro-black ideology, it sounds good in theory, but in practice it's just not working. You come to nations such as the UK, the black people are not a monolith like, say, the Indians or the Chinese. The black population is a splintered group with various Caribbean people from various different islands, various Africans from various different countries, and within those countries, various different tribes, right? So again, in order for us to have this sort of unity, which is going to take at this point probably centuries, we need to have a change of mindset. Number 6, abusive parents. Again, similar to having zero empathy, but the fact is many of our parents are probably traumatized themselves. I think especially many parents that came from wealthy families back in Nigeria, and maybe they moved to the UK and that transitioned into a sort of working class, middle class income. Like, these people were raised by what's called house boys or house girls. These are essentially servants in the house, and these kids were typically shipped off to boarding schools, so they didn't really have relationships with their parents like that. What happens there is that, firstly, they don't really see that interaction, they don't really understand how to be parents, and also there is elements of sibling rivalry which normalizes elements of competitive behaviors. So you might have a parent now who thinks it's okay to pit 2 siblings against each other. You know, they think it's okay to have a favorite sibling, and there is one black sheep of the family that they don't, that they don't treat fairly, they never side with, which obviously just creates angst in that person and creates, again, sibling rivalry. Again, we've spoken about the physical abuse, but this is more the mental abuse that is far more serious and far more, it's far reaching. And again, in Nigerian culture, we normalize this stuff. We think this is normal parenting, disciplining your kid by making them face the wall, and these sort of archaic disciplines that evoke a sense, that they come as if they come from slavery. These are outdated practices that we need to modernize. But I think, again, when things are in such chaos in Nigeria, it's like these soft practices are seen as unimportant when it's very important. Mental health, psychology, very important. Probably even more important, especially in the so-called third world when you've got so much stressors to deal with. So again, abusive parents only create abusive people. More abusive people come into the world. More people who are hard-hearted, callous, haters. Having these ailments just make people prone to depression and lethargy. You can't function properly. You have bad relationships, bad friendships, bad interactions. People don't like you. You're prone to having malice towards others, holding on to grudges. These things, the bad parent just defiles people. And in my opinion, if you don't know how to be a parent, don't have kids. Number 7, selfish. And this is linked to materialism, but again, selfishness is very prominent in the Nigerian. Again, such competitive inclinations, materialism, and a big man complex, I want to be the main character, I want to be the star of the show, that facilitates a me mentality. When others come up, you don't see their come up as good. And this is the thing, you see, this is the thing that a lot of black people in general don't understand. See, a lot of black people in general think that if they come up, and if they dress well, and if they look presentable, if they speak without vernacular, that means other people will view them as a black person as, okay, you're black people aren't, you're a good example. But the reality is there is so many more bad examples out there that you are ineffective. Whatever you're trying to display is not working. So the reality is, we need to have a cooperation. We need to invest in elevating the community, people around us, our family, not just our individual self. There's so many people that I know that they found the game. They found something in life that made them very successful, but they felt like if they passed on this knowledge to other Nigerians or other black people, it's going to just create more competition for myself. So I might as well just keep this knowledge to myself and not share these ideas and not allow other people to become successful just like me. So they can look down on other people and have this God complex. And that happens in families too. That's such a sick mentality to have. If I got some success, and this is part of why I've originally came onto YouTube, I want to share things that have worked for me. Naturally, if something is working, if I find some solution to life, I want to share it to people close by to me. I don't want to keep it to myself so I can just look successful whilst people around me are poor. And that is the mental abusive nature of many Nigerians. Many people don't mind seeing people around them poor, so they are elevated, so people can look up to them, admire them, and feed into their narcissism. Number 8, elders do not know how to hand down power. And we've discussed this briefly, but again, it's the fact that in the mind of these elders, they just are not mentally equipped or do not understand for whatever reason that they need to prepare for the future. Work in that stage of life, but also hand down responsibilities so it empowers their children or younger people to, take on board more responsibility and to lead the family. A lot of people say, black men don't lead, right? And I think this is in comparison to other groups of men. But the reality is, a leader has to be groomed. A leader, no one just comes up as a leader. These traits and characteristics have to be groomed inside of you. But if you grow up in a household that doesn't facilitate these ideals into you, doesn't give you responsibility, treats you like a child, maybe like a slave, you just do menial tasks, chores. I mean, what is to be expected? Who's raising these kids? How do you expect your kid to be a successful business owner when you didn't invest any skills pertaining to owning a business? It's a real funny situation because a lot of people just expect a grown man, let's be honest, a lot of the burdens of leadership falls on men. A lot of women complain that, oh, men don't lead. Nigerian men are this and that. A lot of complaints fired at Nigerian men. But how, for example, a boy that was kind of neglected, wasn't really raised, just told to do stuff, go to school, get your education, and all of a sudden, somehow he becomes successful, and now you expect him to know what to do in terms of looking after the family, looking after the household. How? When these traits wasn't invested within him. In fact, he saw your selfishness. He saw you doing for yourself. So that's probably the mentality that he will adopt. He will also do for himself. Right? So elders need to understand how to transition power, how to hand down power, how to find their successor. I'm grateful for my father, man. He had a great plan. He had a great will. His hard work I gained from. His side was good, but the other side of my family is questionable, man. I'm just being honest with this. Again, a lot of people fronting, buying big stuff and not thinking about the future or their next of kin. Number 9, many Nigerians despise other black people. Again, this is linked to the arrogance, but it's also unacceptable. When Black Panther came out, we all loved the idea of Wakanda, and although Wakanda was an isolationist nation, it was still like a beacon of hope for black pride, sovereignty, and for Africa in general. And eventually they opened up their borders and welcomed, people in the diaspora, and they understand that we need to help others. But if you despise other black people, again, it also goes into ideas of being pro-black and Pan-Africanism. If you despise other black people, you look down on the Jamaican or the American, you have these names for them, but you probably don't have such a disposition for white people. Let's look at this mentality. A black person who disrespects other black people but respects white people. What is that? What is that mentality, and what can that mentality achieve in the global scheme of co-prosperity? Black people operating together, black people not being victims of powers or foreign powers. How can that happen when you have one group of black people that despise other black people and they think, they are the best black people? It can't work. And again, shout out to Tariq Nasheed and the FBA lineage. I understand that and I respect that, because you can't do anything with people who do not want to respect you, who are arrogant, who do not want to cooperate with you, who see themselves as different from you. Like, you can't work with someone who thinks in that manner. They are dead weight. And I think number 10, ultimately, we have not done much to decolonize ourselves, okay? And what I mean by that is Nigeria, for example, is not a native name. Nigeria is a name given to us. I'm surprised a country like Niger, a country with a name that looks like a derogatory term, who are independent, haven't wondered or fought to change the name of their country that was given to them by France. How can you go to the Olympic Games with your team shirt saying basically nigger? The flag, what does the Nigerian flag represent? What part of the history does it show? Again, it just shows that there's a lack of vision, a lack of design. You might think, this is just a flag and this is just a name, but no, the flag, your representation, and the name are the first steps. When a child is born, a name is given. That's the first hurdle. When you see that these things are not even being thought about, you quickly understand that the mentality for, a vision is just not there. It's not evident. It's not understood. And this is why, again, I said that Nigerians are not used to living in a nation state, because these things you'll quickly come to understand. And I'm very proud of Ghana. They were called the Gold Coast, right? As soon as independence came, they changed the name to a African native name, Ghana, the Ghana Empire. And they changed their flag. You know, that's the mentality of people who understand what a nation state is. Many Nigerians have this fake patriotism. They don't, it's hard. How can you be proud of a country that isn't really your own country? You are forced in with other groups by a colonialist. Like, how can you be proud of a country you don't understand where the flag came from? You don't understand where the name come from. Nigeria basically just means Negro area. It's just black area, you know, a name given to you by foreigners. How can you be proud and represent such a country? These are the fundamental ideas of a nation state. The name, the representation is coming from your brain, your mind, and this is how you get people to operate within that banner sincerely. You know, so you see that a lot of this Nigerian patriotism is just performative. People are just, they don't know what they're doing, but it's like these football hooligans. This is why I don't watch sports. I don't support any team, because it's the same idea. You're just looking for a color to fall under, but you're not really thinking for yourself. So again, with this video, I know most Nigerians will hate this video, but again, all I ask is that we take a deeper look within and to understand why other people might be hostile to us, and many of us really don't understand why. Many of us think, oh, it's out of jealousy and envy, but I don't think so. I think there is a lot of endemic, systemic issues that Nigerians need to confront and change, because we are in the decline, and things are only going to get worse. But anyway, if you like this video, all I ask you to do is to like it, share it maybe, and join the Discord with the link pinned to the first comment underneath this video. I really appreciate your attention, and feel free to comment your thoughts below the video. But until the next one, peace.